You'd think war is a no-holds-barred kind of deal. Bullets flying, bodies dropping, chaos turned up to 11. Surely no one's checking rulebooks out there, right? Well, surprise, war has rules. Weird, twisted, bloody rules. And breaking them doesn't just make you a bad guy, it makes you a war criminal. Now here's where it gets spicy. There's a certain little caliber, light, fast, Soviet-born, that's been doing more than just punching holes in targets. I'm talking about the 5.45 by 39, the slick little round made famous by the AK-74. But in recent years, and especially now in 2025, it's been caught up in some serious allegations. Not because of the gun, not even because of the caliber itself, but because of what's inside the bullet. Yeah, this story isn't about a bullet that's too big. It's about a bullet that opens up in ways it shouldn't. And that, my friends, is where things get ugly. Just a quick heads up. This video dives into the technical and legal side of ammunition used in modern conflicts. It's not taking sides. I'm not here to wave flags, just to break down the facts, the gear, and the gray areas. Let's talk. Let's rewind to the Cold War. Not just spies and satellites, but a ballistic arms race that played out in every trench and training ground. NATO was rolling out the hot new 5.56 by 45, and the Soviets? Well, they don't exactly like being outgunned. So what did they do? They went back to the lab and whipped up a round that would go toe-to-toe with the West's best. That round was the 5.45 by 39, sleeker, faster, and designed with one mission in mind: beat NATO at its own game. This little fella was engineered to replace the old-school 7.62 by 39, which, let's be honest, hits hard but flies like a brick in a windstorm. The Soviets weren't trying to be fancy. They just needed something flatter, faster, and easier to handle when you're laying down suppressive fire with a full mag and zero patience. Here's the breakdown. The standard 5.45 by 39 cartridge weighs about 53 grains, pushing out at around 2,900 feet per second. It's got a nice flat trajectory, and when it hits soft tissue, it yaws, basically tumbles, and that does some wicked damage inside a human body. It's surgical chaos. Add in a lightweight AK-74 and a 30-round mag, and you've got a rifleman's dream for modern infantry doctrine. I've fired 5.45 plenty here in the States. Not some rusted battlefield relic, but a proper civilian-legal AK-74 clone. And yeah, it runs like a dream. Light recoil, smooth cycling, and tight follow-ups. It practically begs you to dump the whole mag. You shoot this thing at the range and instantly get why Russian infantry ditched 7.62 for it. It's a damn laser pointer by comparison. So, with all that engineering magic, you'd think the story ends there. But nah, that's where the drama begins. Because as this slick little round made its way from Cold War parade grounds to the blood and mud of Ukraine, it started showing up in versions that raised eyebrows. I'm talking about rounds that don't just tumble, they open up. And when that happens on the battlefield, you're not just crossing borders, you're crossing a line in international law. You ever take apart a hunting round and just admire how nasty it is by design? That's not an accident. Some bullets are built to hit hard, others are built to hit and destroy. And then, there are bullets that do way more than they're supposed to. I'm talking about expanding bullets, also known as dumdums, soft points, hollow points, whatever flavor you like. They all share one purpose: open up inside the target and make a mess you can't sew back together. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're deer hunting, that kind of terminal performance is gold. You want the round to dump its energy, stay in the animal, and put it down clean. But take that same round into war, and suddenly we've got a problem. Because on the battlefield, the goal, legally anyway, is to incapacitate, not obliterate. There's a line. A bloody, blurry line. Back in 1899, the international community decided enough was enough. The Hague Declaration banned expanding bullets in warfare under the idea that they cause unnecessary suffering. That's not some liberal nonsense. That's actual treaty language. And it was inspired in part by one infamous round, the British .303 dumdum, which ripped soldiers open like confetti bags in the colonial wars. That round left such a trail of shredded limbs that diplomats literally said, "Yeah, no more of that." Fast forward to today, And Rule 77 of the International Committee of the Red Cross's customary law still holds the same line. No expanding bullets in international armed conflict. Period. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter who you're shooting at. If your round expands in soft tissue, you're dancing on a legal landmine. Now here's where the 545 by 39 comes back into the picture. While the standard FMJ 7N6 round is perfectly legal, there have been persistent reports and battlefield recoveries suggesting that modified or experimental variants of 545 behave like expanding rounds. We're talking tips that flatten, jackets that peel, or rounds that fragment mid-flight in ways that eerily resemble dumdums. These aren't wild Reddit theories either. Analysts, NGOs, even frontline medics in Ukraine have commented on wounds that look suspicious. Could it be heat deformation? Manufacturing inconsistency? Sure. But could it also be deliberate? Could it be a clever little cheat to get around the law while still creating devastating wounds? You bet it could. It's not like militaries haven't done it before. I've seen ammo where the tip looks just slightly recessed. Innocent enough on the shelf? But in gel tests, it blossoms like a damn hydrangea. The trick is in how it's presented. If it looks like an FMJ, it might pass inspection. But if it acts like a hollow point, we're back in dumdum territory. And that's exactly where this story starts getting dirty. Because when you're fielding bullets that explode flesh from the inside out, we're no longer just talking about tactics or efficiency. We're talking about violating the laws of war. And the 545, despite its clean-cut reputation, has one dirty little secret. Some of its newer variants bite way harder than they're supposed to. You'd think by now, after a century of world wars, Cold War standoffs, and international agreements scribbled in oak-paneled halls, that we'd have figured out how to play fair, even when blowing each other's limbs off. But in 2025, in the muddy trenches and shattered cities of Ukraine, those old rules are being tested harder than ever. Right now, the 545 by 39 isn't just a relic of Soviet design. It's being fired daily in one of the most brutal and politically charged conflicts on Earth. Russia's standard-issue round for their AK-74s and derivatives. This little cartridge is getting battlefield hours like few others in the world. And while most of those are good old full metal jacket, the kind you'd expect from standard-issue military stockpiles, not all of them are playing by the rules. Reports started coming in as early as 2022, but by now, mid-2025, the documentation is piling up. Medics, forensic analysts, and NGOs on the ground have all flagged wounds that don't line up with traditional FMJ trauma. Some are wide, some are jagged, some look like they were caused by a bullet that bloomed open like a damned metal flower inside the body. One Ukrainian soldier was quoted saying, "These wounds, they aren't from standard rounds. We've seen those. These rip people in half." Is that exaggeration? Maybe. But it matches patterns seen across multiple field reports, particularly from Donetsk and Luhansk. Now here's the thing. Russia denies it, officially. They say all issued ammo complies with international law. But there's evidence, leaked photos, ballistic gel tests, medical x-rays, suggesting that some units may be using modified or specialized variants of the 545 that expand fragment, or destabilize in a way that arguably crosses the line. Worse, there have been counter-accusations. Russia claims Ukrainian forces are doing the exact same thing. War's messy like that. The accusations fly as fast as the rounds. And let's be real, it wouldn't be the first time a military slipped a special round into the mix. During Vietnam, during Chechnya, during Syria, it's happened before. Countries experiment, field test, deny, deflect. That's the game. But what makes it dangerous now is the transparency. Every trench has a GoPro. Every wounded soldier's scan can be posted to a Telegram channel in 5 minutes. And guess what? People are watching. ICRC, UN monitors, human rights watchdogs. You can't sneak illegal rounds under the radar like you used to. Here's the million-dollar question. Is this a deliberate violation of international law? Or is it just a byproduct of cheap ammo, poor storage, or bad supply chains? Honestly, maybe a little of both. But what matters is perception. When a bullet behaves like a dum-dum and does so repeatedly, it no longer matters what was stamped on the box. What matters is what it does to the body. And when that body is being carted off with massive tissue loss and shrapnel patterns inconsistent with FMJ, you've got yourself a PR nightmare and maybe a war crime. So yeah, the 545 by 39 is still doing its job in 2025. But somewhere along the line, some of those little rounds got meaner. And the laws of war? They're struggling to keep up. The law says expanding bullets are banned in international warfare. Sounds simple, right? But war isn't simple, and neither is modern ammo. Once you start digging into the details, you realize just how much gray area sits between legal and lethal. Take one look at today's small arms catalog, and you'll find bullets that technically aren't hollow points, but sure as hell behave like them. Some have polymer tips, open tips, or fragmenting cores that break apart like ceramic inside a target. They're designed for accuracy or barrier penetration, but in gel tests, they open up like a blooming onion. So, what's the line, exactly? A perfect example? Russia's 7N6M variant, an armor-piercing update to the standard 545 by 39 round. It's got a steel penetrator, enhanced wounding profile, and whispers around the gun world suggest it might do more than just tumble. On paper, it's legal. In practice, depends who's watching and who's bleeding. This isn't just about Russia. Some NATO rounds walk a fine legal line, too. The Mk318 SOST, used by U.S. Marines, has an open tip that fragments upon impact. Technically, it was approved for use under the justification of accuracy, not expansion, a neat legal sidestep, if you ask me. But this just proves the point. Interpretation matters. And here's where it gets spicy. International law, like the Hague Convention, was written before smart ammo, polymer tips, and computer-modeled wound channels. It wasn't designed for a world where soldiers wear cameras and internet sleuths break down slow-mo ballistics like it's Sunday Night Football. So, what does that mean for 2025? It means a bullet that looks legal but performs like a dumdum could slip through the cracks until someone calls it out. And when that happens, it's not just an ethical debate, it's a media firestorm, a war crimes tribunal, and a propaganda weapon rolled into one. Truth is, the rules are only as strong as the people enforcing them. And in modern conflict, enforcement often shows up too late, long after the body's already on the table. It'd be easy to point fingers at one side and pretend the rest of the world is squeaky clean. But war doesn't work like that, and neither does ammunition development. The West, especially NATO, has had its own run-ins with the blurry line between what's effective on the battlefield and what's legal under international law. One round in particular? The Mk318 SOST, developed for the U.S. Marines. On the surface, it's labeled a barrier-blind round, meant to punch through glass, wood, or other obstacles without losing accuracy. But crack open the data, and you'll see that this round doesn't just punch, it fragments, it tears. It behaves suspiciously like the kind of bullet the Hague tried to keep off the battlefield. Now, to be fair, the U.S. justified it by saying it's not technically an expanding bullet. It's an open-tip match round designed for accuracy. Sound familiar? That's the legal gymnastics ammo designers have been doing for years, and in many cases, it works. It passes the sniff test in courtrooms and Geneva briefings. But on the receiving end, it sure doesn't feel like a clean kill. And it's not just Mk318. There are NATO rounds with fragmenting cores, exotic alloys, and even dual-purpose tips designed to increase terminal effectiveness, which is code for, it hits harder than you'd expect. The point here isn't to call out hypocrisy, it's to show that every side plays this game. Russia does it, NATO does it, small countries, special forces, contractors. Everyone's trying to find that sweet spot where the round is legal on paper but devastating in practice. Because in war, performance matters. And if you can give your troops a round that drops the enemy faster without catching a Hague violation, you bet someone's signing off on that shipment. Whether that's ethical, that's another discussion. But legal? For now, just barely. And at the end of the day, every side walks the same line, and sometimes stumbles right over it. So here we are, a slick little Soviet round, a handful of shady variants, and a whole lot of battlefield controversy. The 545 by 39 wasn't designed to break the rules, but in 2025, some versions of it may be doing exactly that. This isn't just a story about bullets. It's a story about how far we'll push the limits when the stakes are life or death. And when a round meant to wound starts to shred, the conversation shifts from tactics to legality. What's your take? Drop it in the comments, hit that like button, and I'll see you downrange.